Hey everyone, thanks for joining. You are on Copact's Dynamic Duo series where results are guaranteed. Today I have the pleasure of having founder of F3 Collective, John Kenley, on. I always love to start these interviews and conversations with a little bit about your background and your journey.
Happy to do that. I've been running my current business for about a little over a year. Before that, really have a long background in the tech space. Lived in San Francisco for 10 years. Worked at startups for a lot of my career. Most of my time has been in sales. Kind of started at the bottom as an SDR in 2011 at a tech startup. That company was acquired by Google. So kind of all of a sudden worked at Google. That was when I was 24, 25 years old as, a young kid thinking, oh, it's very slow moving at Google. I want to be at a startup. I don't want to be at Google. Leave Google in 2013, bounce around at some startups, and end up in 2015 co-founding a startup for the first time. It was a venture-backed retail startup, grew that business in about 4 years to $20 million annual recurring revenue. I was overseeing revenue at that startup. Essentially, COVID sort of crushed that business for a variety of reasons. So that business shut down in February of 2022. I briefly did a legal tech SaaS startup with a co-founder. Only lasted a couple months after raising some pre-seed, which is probably a topic for a whole other episode that we won't get into why that happened. Found myself starting my current business very unexpectedly. Definitely found myself basically sitting back and going, okay, what do you know how to do that no one else knows how to do? Or what's your skill set that really sets you apart? What have you learned that you feel like there's a gap for in the market? That's what led me to starting F3, and something we'll probably get into a lot is sort of the peaks and valleys of starting something on your own. And it was not super fun at the beginning. 2023 and the first part of 2024 were not that fun, but I've really honed in on exactly what I can help founders with and what the gap in the market is. Excited about the way 2024 is ending, and 2025 is looking pretty exciting, especially now that I'm partnering up with Copact.
What would you say your biggest lessons learned?
I was surprised to really realize how many founders don't know how to sell. If you're the founder, if you're the CEO of a company and you don't have a sales background, you're a salesperson whether you like it or not. And I think I've met so many founders who will do anything they can that isn't sales to try to grow their business. Let's redo the branding. Let's growth hack. Let's optimize our marketing funnel. Let's create content. Let's do this. Let's do that. Literally anything but getting in front of your customers and asking them questions and selling your product to them. That is really where I've been able to step in and help a lot of founders out, is empowering founders led sales. Incredibly powerful tool for an early stage business. But if you're a founder, you certainly get sold to a lot, right? You receive a lot of garbage in your inbox all the time. So I found there's a lot of fear with founders. They don't want to go out there and sell because they've received so much crap essentially coming their way that they don't want to be lumped in with all the bad sales tactics that they've seen. So that fear prevents them from doing any selling whatsoever. And usually that causes businesses to either fail to get off the ground or to plateau. A lot of founders have had success growing a business organically or through word of mouth, but that can only really take you so far. You got to get out there and sell. The takeaway being that it's not always the best product or the best idea that's going to win, right? It's the people that understand their customer. They can really go out and pitch and sell. That's where I come in. I want to give founders the tools to learn to go out and sell.
I think it's a great point. I actually really struggled with it as well. The intimacy as a founder of selling really yourself first, and then your product, your solution, your offering second. Having a partner in that to help guide you and help you feel that you're offering authentic and true value is invaluable.
Yeah, it's hard not to take things personally. So if someone says no, they're directly saying no to me. It takes some, you got to develop a thick skin for sure.
F3, what's your mission? What's your expertise?
I'm glad we're talking today. This is a question that I've spent most of the year finding the right answer for, and I think I've got it, which is, most founders hate sales, and I help founders fall in love with it. I think there's a lot of very common mistakes that are made, especially by founders that don't have a sales background. Maybe they have a technical background, maybe they have an operations background. First of all, they don't realize that if you're the founder, if you're in the C-suite, you are a salesperson, right? But if they do realize that, they're really not equipped to do it. So where I come in, most of the companies I work with are they have revenue. They've gotten their first few customers. They've got traction. Maybe they feel like they've identified product market fit. Sub million in revenue is typically where I come in. But if you feel like you're starting to plateau, you've grown organically, you've had success, but you're peaking a little bit. You feel like, okay, I'm struggling to take it to the next level. How do I bring this business that I built to more customers? That's usually a good time to call me, because I really want to help founders build that foundation of sales, right? So and sometimes that does involve taking a look at your ICP, right? I think a lot of founders, the most common mistake is to think that your product works for everybody, right? That's really the kiss of death. Oh, well, this is so ubiquitous, anybody could use it. If you're an early stage company and you're saying that, you are in deep trouble and you may not realize it, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to talk about who your ICP is, right? A lot of times I'll talk to a company and they'll say, "Oh yeah, well, we're for technology companies." Nope, that is not a good ICP. The right answer to that question is we specialize in pre-seed to seed stage technology companies doing between $1 and $3 million in revenue based in the United States. That is what an ICP should sound like, not technology companies. Define the ICP, make sure you understand what their problems are, and then make sure that you're selling to them in the way that they want to be sold to.
There's been a lot of debate of starting narrow and then expanding versus starting broad, learning a lot and then narrowing. What's your methodology?
If you're an early stage company that is pre-revenue, your first ICP is the size of one. You need to find one person to give you $1 for your product or service. Literally, one is as narrow as it gets. And then learn about that person. Learn why they said yes, learn what they're getting out of your product, and figure out how many people like them exists and expand from there. Right. But I am a fan of being very specific in nailing the problems they have and speaking to them in a very specific way that they like to be spoken to. And the only way to do that is if your ICP is narrow. Starting narrow means you are going to build rabid, loyal customers who want to tell their friends about your product. If you're going to start serving a customer outside of that initial ICP, they should come to you. It should be an inbound, oh, that's the way that your ICP should widen naturally. You should do such a good job with that narrow ICP that people from outside of it start to land in your lap. That's how it works, is the widening of the ICP happens organically.
It's a great point, and I think a lot of people struggle with it because it hurts your soul a bit as a founder to be only for this sliver or section when I know my idea, my solution can serve so many, but you have to make that sacrifice early on to really focus in on who you can add the most value for.
If you're a founder, you should have the utmost confidence in what you're building. And part of having that confidence is thinking everyone should want to buy it. It's like the most natural inclination you can have as a founder. It's very normal to think, well, our TAM is 4 billion people because everybody should want this. That's not a bad way to think. You just need to be able to take a step back. Can we actually effectively sell and market to that TAM? Probably not. Let's get more specific. Let's walk before we run. Let's sell this thing to 10 people before we try to sell it to 10 million people.
How do you and F3 think about providing an impact guarantee? Why is that going to be a core part of your strategy in 2025 and beyond?
This is something I've always been focused on before even meeting you and getting involved with Copact. One of the beauties of running your own business is you can call the shots and offer guarantees. I've always had some level of money back. To me, that is doing good business and doing right by your customers. I think there's a lot of false promises that are constantly floating through our LinkedIn feeds every day. It's harder and harder to tell who's legit and who's not because it's so easy to look legit on the surface. What Copact is offering is so important because it's a backstop. If I said I was going to help you increase revenue or increase lead flow and I don't, then yeah, you probably are owed a bit of revenue back.
Fully agree. Perks of Copact is also the other side. As a partner, I felt like I've been backwards and done everything I could and didn't get the proper client support. So that mutual commitment and mutual alignment of goals is where the market is headed and where we can help show people that if you work with your B2B product and service providers, you can achieve a lot more than what you thought.
Yeah, I love to hear you say that because especially in the way that I work with clients, it's a must because I'm teaching you how to send emails. I'm teaching you how to send a proposal. I'm teaching you how to pitch your clients. I'm teaching you how to write interesting posts on LinkedIn. If you don't do any of that, it's not my fault, right? Founder-led sales is the most impactful. To your point, having that sort of mutual commitment to, hey, someone's going to work with me, they're committing to actually going on the field and implementing the guidance that I'm giving them. I can write you the best sales pitch ever. I can write you the best looking LinkedIn posts ever. And if you don't click copy paste and put them out there in the world, then it's impossible for you to get results.
Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you fed him for life.
There you go. That's exactly right. I'm trying to teach people how to fish.
Talking about teaching people how to fish, quick success story, highlight to people a successful engagement, showing the peak value that F3 can bring to founders that need support.
The first story that comes to mind, the client I'm referencing, I signed a deal with them, provided them with a scope of work, and then ended up being able to add value in a way that really wasn't even in scope, but it is now something that I offer, which is a client came to me struggling to post pitch. They were not getting the engagement from their prospects. They were saying they had a great call, they sent a follow up, and then customers were going dark. Right? So I said, why don't you forward me the email threads? Forward me all of your historical threads with this client and let me do some detective work, right? I did exactly that. I went all the way to the bottom of the thread. I looked at the follow up and basically noticed that it was kind of your standard generic, thanks for a great call. Here's our pitch deck. Looking forward to speaking again soon. There was no urgency created. There was no specific pain point called out. There was no timeline, agreed to, right? It was missing a lot of key building blocks, had them go back to the client. They had collected that information. They just didn't put it in the follow-up email. I went back to the client and said, why don't you reference, they identified a key pain point. Why don't you ping this email thread again and say, hey, you mentioned XYZ was coming up, in November. Haven't heard from you. Would love to help you solve that problem. A day later, they get a reply from the prospect. It was a really cool story that wasn't something that I had sold to them, but it was a problem that came up, and it turns out a really cool way for me to add value. I hadn't pitched them that as a service, but it turned out to be something that drove really interesting value for them, and it's something I offer to everybody now because I think it's hard to spot those mistakes yourself. Having a second pair of eyes helps uncover pretty basic mistakes in the sales process.
I think that story does a great job of two things. One, you mentioned the blind spot of you don't know your blind spot. That's why they call it a blind spot. The second thing I love is it highlights John and F3 as a partner, not a vendor. And this is one thing I would talk about people a lot of. The main difference I always see between a partner and a vendor is transactional. It'll deliver what they say they're going to do and leave it to you. A partner goes that extra step to figure out how do I actually create impact. We're very proud at Copact that we're bringing on partners. We don't bring on vendors. We bring on partners that are truly going to support our clients and going to help them achieve their vision.
I love being a partner. It feels like I'm on a team with clients.
What's one thing you want founders to know about you and why they should reach out?
Like it or not, you're a salesperson. If you're a CEO, if you're a C-suite, if you're a co-founder, you are a salesperson, whether that falls within your job title or not. And you need to develop that muscle as much as you want to avoid it, as much as you want to do literally everything that is, public facing for your business other than selling. You have no choice. You have to do it. And also, it's easier than you think. You know, you'd be surprised at how quickly smart people can pick this up and run with it, and that's where I come in. So, stop resisting being a salesperson. Take a little bit of time, learn how to do it, and the business is going to be forever change as a result of that.
Great point. Right resources, right tools, and you can make them successful, and that's what F3 brings. Thank you so much. This was Copac's Dynamic Duo series, where results are guaranteed.